Tom Campbell here. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Matthew, please go ahead.
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Hi, Matthew. I'm doing fine.
Great. So I have recently had a near-death experience. I told the people in my bubble about this, and they're extremely supportive, and I appreciate that. So like most of my life, as I've complained to you before, it's been dominated by like negative feelings, and oftentimes I'll find myself, obsessed with like, suicidal thoughts. I'm not going to do it, but depression. So I'm wondering if you could suggest any ways that I could use the non-physical and meditation to abate these thoughts, or because I know when I'll meditate and they all fade away, and I feel completely at peace, that's when I'll feel as if I'm actually reconnected with who I truly am, the core of my being. But I find that I just rush back into the same old BS again. I mean, I know there's a lot of attitude work I have to do. A lot I have to change in my life, surely. But maybe there's some more advanced or just alternative exercises or ways to use meditation so that I can stave off depression more and keep my awareness wide, which goes into my second question, but it's kind of like a part of it, so I'll just ask you after.
Well, there's some fear in there, Matthew, that keeps jerking you into negativity. And that fear causes you to have negative feelings about yourself. And that's what grabs you all the time. One thing you can do is while you're in that meditation state, and like you say, everything kind of clears when you're in that state, because and that's good that it does that. You could, in your mind, constantly, all day, all night, constantly, 24/7 in your mind, have your thoughts that I don't want to have those fears. I want those fears to go away. I'm me. I'm okay. I like me just fine. I'm doing all right. I don't need all this fear dragging me, down into depression all the time. I just don't want to be that way. And if you keep that up, not just say it once or just when you meditate, but keep that as a present thought in your mind continually. So all day long, you're doing whatever you do. You're at work. You do you're doing what you do at work. You're whatever. But still, that's up there in your mind every minute or so. That you just kind of put that in there. I don't want to have that fear. I want it to just go away and leave me alone. Imagine yourself without it. Imagine how you feel without that. Oh, I feel good. I feel free. And just get a sense of what that feeling is like. And just keep that going. And if you can do that for even just a few weeks, I think you'll find there's a difference. That'll make a difference. But you have to have it continually, a program running in your head that you want to get rid of that fear. And here's what it's like when I don't have it. You have this thing, I just feel good. I just deal with life. I have a big picture, and I don't have all those things that keep telling me I'm not so good and that, I'm a problem and I'm doing it wrong. Just, I don't want those feelings. Go away, leave me alone. And if you have that as a constant thought, in a couple of weeks, you should see some improvement. You won't get rid of it, but you'll notice that it's just a little softer touch. It doesn't have the stranglehold around you. It's loosened its grip a little bit, and keep working on it, and it'll loosen the grip a little bit more until you actually get rid of it. So having that thought all the time, day and night, you're thinking about it when you go to sleep. You're thinking about it when you wake up. I don't want to be that way. And here's how I want to be. Vision yourself. No fear. Here's the way I want to be. Now, don't have any worry. Don't say, here's the way I want to be. Yeah, fat chance. See, that undermines it. Don't do that. That undermines it. You have to just be steady. You can't be negative about it. You got to be positive. So you can't say, yeah, okay, I'm going to be without that. Boy, sure hopes that works. That's not going to do it. You just have to have that, send that message out there. What you're doing is modifying future probability. And if you put that much effort into it daily over a couple of weeks, you should feel that grip is a little looser, not gone, but just a little looser than it was before. And just keep working that. So I think, it's deep enough and pervasive enough in you that you're trying to, locate it, own it, deal with it, and so on. It's just not working very well for you. It's been more difficult. So I think maybe you need this technique. And if it takes a month instead of a couple of weeks, just keep at that in your mind, that positive attitude. And particularly when you're in a meditation state, because you have more oomph there than you have otherwise. And don't ever add a little negative quip to it, like, yeah, right, or I wish, or something like that. That kind of cancels it out. Just say it, feel it, mean it. Mean it. That's important. You have to really mean it. And that's easy to mean. I don't want to be that way. So try that and see what happens. See if that doesn't give you a little breathing room to deal with it.
Thank you. I think that'll be very useful because I can't forget. It's actually easy for me to forget that it is fear-based. And it turns out a lot of my fear comes from, I'm afraid to feel what I would when I'm without this, because I obviously don't deserve to feel better. That's, and that if I do feel better, I'm going to hurt other people. That's another feeling. If I feel better, how do I deserve that? How do I manage, self-worth now? Like I'm going to be stepping on other people's toes, but I'm going to do just as you recommended.
Right. Well, all that's negative, because when you think of it in that terms, you're reinforcing that you would do damage, that there would be a problem, that you wouldn't be worthy. And, you're reinforcing all of that. This is, I just don't want to be that way. I want all this fear thing. I'm just going to be me. And I'll deal with me when I get me back. When I get me back, I'll deal with all those things then. It'll be fine. And everything's going to be very positive. So if you have that very positive viewpoint and just keep focused on it 24/7, at least 2 weeks, maybe more, until you feel that hand just, it's like this now. It's got a grip on you very tight, and you just feel it loosen up a bit, and a little bit more, and it'll go away. Have patience.
If I could ask a brief question, and I have to say thank you very much for that, and I hope it will be useful to other people. Can you say anything about improving one's memory? I feel it's like every few weeks, it's like the slate is like wiped clean. I forget kind of what I'm trying to focus on. It feels like my awareness just has this shrinking effect. That could be like, my depressive nature, just cycling back to making some progress, 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of thing. But I'm not sure if anyone else has issues with long-term focus, but if you could recommend anything or any insights you have on that.
Well, this thing that I just told you will help you with that as well, because you're going to do this long term. You're not going, you're going to do this for a couple of weeks at least, maybe a month or so, and that's going to require focus. You're going to forget about it, and you go, "Oh, I haven't been doing this." Get back to it. And the way your memory improves is that your focus improves. The memory tends to drift off when you drift off, when you're no longer really connected to what you're doing. So stay focused on the things that you do, whether it's your job or your hobby or just cleaning your apartment or whatever it is. Do it because it needs to be done, and don't be daydreaming while you do it, but stay focused. Try to stay very focused on your life And all, we tend to go on automatic a lot, where we just go through our daily life without really thinking about it. And particularly when you have a lot of negative feelings built in, then that just gives those negative feelings a playground to work in. If you stay focused on things, so even mundane things, okay, I'm going to make the bed now. Well, make it well, make it right, get all those wrinkles out, do a good job and stay focused on it. And then when you're done, step back and say, good job. That looks nice. It looks tidy. I like that feel of the tidiness and the niceness. That's good. And then go on to the next thing. But focus on each thing and try to spend as little time in zombie mode as possible, where you're just going through the motions and life is going by. That just gives free rein to that fear. So stay focused, which will take, it's going to take effort. You're going to have to use some concentration to stay focused, and you're going to catch yourself not being focused, just being a zombie, doing the normal things of life without thinking about them. But stay focused on everything. Everything you do for a reason. Everything you do has value. Even if it's just tying your shoes in the morning, there's reason for it. It has value. Don't do things half-heartedly. Just do them well. Everything you do, you should do well, and you should have focus. That's sort of what being mindful means, that you stay connected. When you're not connected, then what's down in your subconscious just kind of, runs around and takes charge. And that's not good for you.
That's extremely helpful, because I'll spend most of my day either listening to music or have like a YouTube video on while I'm doing something else. So I'm always like, my state is zombie mode, disconnected. So be a big change. But I was recently suspecting that I probably shouldn't live this way. So thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ingo, please go ahead.
Yes, of course. It's maybe an unusual question, but it's something that I've thought about. Here in our PMR, in our reality, almost everything is regulated by contracts. And do such contracts exist in other realities too? Do you know something about this?
Okay, you're talking about things in our everyday world are regulated by contract. Yes, that is an artifact of civilization. That's an artifact of people living together. If you have one individual living by themselves on a desert island and nobody else lives there, then that individual can do whatever it is they want to do whenever it is they want to do it, right? They don't have any restrictions whatsoever, only the restrictions they impose upon themselves. But now you put somebody else on that island. Now there's two people on the island. Now there's going to be some restrictions because they have to share things. They have to get along. They have to cooperate. Or one of them will kill the other one and they'll be back to one person on the island. But if they're going to remain two people on the island, then they're going to have to take account of each other. And some of them, sometimes you're going to have to do things that otherwise you wouldn't do because that other person requires that or needs that, and vice versa. So now put 100 people on that island. You see, the more people we have, the more we interact with each other, the more we have, social connections. And then you're going to find that the rules, the contracts we have get more and more invasive. So now we live in a world with 7.5 billion people in it. We live in countries that are pretty much at their as large a population. There's a few countries that have population has slipped, but most people are living in a country that's at least near its maximum population that it's ever been. And we find we have to regulate lots of things. And part of that regulation we call law. You can't steal other people's stuff. All right, well, if you're going to be in a group of people, then not stealing other people's stuff is a rule that you have to make. You know, it's a regulation. That behavior is not helpful to the whole. So when you have a society, when you have civilization, you have a social system. Whenever you have a social system, you'll have rules that social system imposes on all of its members so that they can more effectively interact with each other. Okay, and those rules that you have to live by, the contracts, the laws, they're all there because they're required to lubricate the interactions with people and make them more effective. So, there's lots of laws. Like when I was a young guy, the state I lived in passed a helmet law that said if you rode a motorcycle, you had to have a helmet. I never had a helmet on when I rode my motorcycle, and I said, "Hey, what do you mean I have to have a helmet? I don't want to wear a helmet." Okay, and I said, "Hey, it's just me. If my head breaks, not your problem. Leave me alone. I don't want to wear a motorcycle helmet." And then it was explained to me that when your head breaks, it is their problem. Because when their head breaks, their ambulance goes and picks you up off the street. Their medics attend to you. You go to their hospital, their doctors attend to you. And it doesn't really matter whether you can afford to pay them or not, because you've just been run over by a motorcycle. They don't check your hospitalization card and they just leave you lie on the street if you don't have one. You get attended to one way or another. You have medical expenses. And if your head damage is bad and you can't really get back out into the society, then there's some other ways that the society has to take care of you. Now you're a cripple, or maybe have other problems. Maybe you can't stand up straight anymore. Maybe it's a spinal injury, maybe a head injury, maybe something else. And the society may be taking care of you as far as offering you services and special ramps for wheelchairs to go up or whatever it is. So because, yes, it's just my head, but I live in a society of people, and my head getting bashed on the road does affect a lot of other people. Not only my wife and children and my mom and dad and those people, but it affects the society, because my society takes care of people who get run over on motorcycles. It fixes their heads, it fixes their backs, it gives them physical therapy, it does these things. And if you're poor, well, the facilities you get may not be as good, but you still get certain benefits, rules that are going to be there to help you re-enter society. And if you can't re-enter society, then there's homes or places for you to go. So they convinced me that it wasn't just me. I didn't live on an island, and my head was just my business. My head was everybody's business to some degree. Right now, that may be I could probably pick things that were better arguments, but that's basically the argument, that when you're in a society, the society makes rules for the benefit of everybody in the society. And the fundamental choice that you have is to basically obey those rules, or take the punishments that the society gives you for disobeying those rules, or get out of that society and go to one that has rules that you like better. I could have lived in some country that didn't make me wear a motorcycle helmet, but then I have to weigh all the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. But that's always the final choice that you have. You don't have to live in that society. You can find maybe some other society. But it's hard these days finding a lone island where there's nobody but you, where you can live and survive for more than a few weeks. Mostly, we need other people to live. We're all not farmers. We're all not, automobile manufacturers, but we want to drive a car and we want to eat food. So we're in a society where we have to get along because we get some things and we have to give some things. And in order to do that, there's rules. And society should only pass those rules that are meaningful to the society, like the motorcycle helmet law. Society says not just, oh, we don't want people to not wear helmets, so we'll just force them all to wear helmets. That's not the way it works. It works of these people getting their head bashed in cost the society money, not only in services, but we lose the services of that person when they were in good health. That person who would have been a contributor to our society, would have had jobs, paid taxes, healed people, built railroads, whatever they do, will lose that active person if they end up with a serious head injury. So we're going to make everybody wear helmets because that's good for us, the society. And then if you have a motorcycle, you can either find some other country to go live in, or you can just go buy a helmet and wear it because that's what your society requires you to do. So I think that's the way most of these things boil down and go, is that your society can make rules, and they make those rules based on what they think is best for the society. And you either, abide by them, accept the consequences of not abiding by them, or go someplace else. And that's basically all the choices you have. Now, you can always try to change a rule. You can write to your politicians, or you can stand up on a street corner and say, I don't want to wear a motorcycle helmet. It's my choice. Leave me alone. And maybe if you think the rule was just capricious, or wasn't based on any need of the society, then maybe you'll be able to make them change it. Or if there's enough people say that, maybe they'll change it. But chances are that's only become a rule because a lot of people, probably the majority of the people, think it's a good rule. Because passing rules that the majority of people think are bad rules usually doesn't work well. Not for long. So the majority of the people, evidently, particularly the people in charge who make rules, think it's a good rule. And in your society, those people make the rules, then you can either obey, take the consequences, or leave. It's just the way it is. But the reason you have so many rules and there's so many contracts for everything is because we're civilized, and that means we live with other people in a social arrangement. Social arrangements dictate rules for the arrangement's benefit. So if the whole social arrangement says this is a problem for us as a social system, then they'll make a rule to fix that problem. And that's just the nature of civil society. You can try to change them, but that's hard for an individual to change rules. You get enough people, maybe you can change it. But if the society feels like it has a good, strong case that it's in the society's self-interest, then you're not going to win, and it's going to be a rule, and your only other alternative is to leave. Because if you cheat, then you have to be willing to take the consequences. So that's kind of it on rules. We have rules because we live together, and we need rules. I mean, how would if we took away all the laws, that would not be good. If anybody who wanted your stuff could just walk into your house and take it and walk out the door and say, well, I'm bigger than you, therefore I can take it. Well, we say, no, that's high entropy. A civil society says that's not allowed. Well, it also says that motorcycle helmet, riding a motorcycle without a helmet's not allowed too. But I got over it. I bought a motorcycle helmet. I rode it. And it was probably a good thing. I was just young and, arrogant, and figured that, hey, you can't tell me what to do. But if you live in a society, yes, they can tell you what to do. That's part of the contract. You live in this society, you have the advantages of the society, the opportunities of society, you obey the rules of the society. And there are processes for making those rules and for changing the rules. Work the process. And if you can't work the process, then obey the rule. Now, obeying a rule means you do something really stupid, like walk around with a big round hat on your head. Well, then that's life. You have to do it. or you'll be constantly paying tickets, and eventually they'll take away your driver's license, and then you won't ride a motorcycle or drive a car or do anything. You'll be grounded. Too high a price to pay. So that's the deal. You look at it and see if the rules are too high a price to pay, then you leave. If they're not, then you do them, or you try to get your rule makers to change them.
Okay, thank you. And in other in different realities, this maybe contract system also exists. Do you know that?
Any place that I have been that there are social systems, there are rules. And they're not necessarily even in just realities with tight rule sets like ours. You know, there are rules in what I would just call non-physical space too. There are some rules that you have to abide by because there's multiple individuals there. And whenever you have more than one person, a rule's going to start, even just with two people. If only two people are together, there will be rules that will be created between those two people. Things they will do, things they won't do. That's not necessarily what they would do if they were by themselves, but they'll modify their behavior because now there's two of them. And when you have large numbers of them, it gets even worse. The rules get deeper and more involved and more intricate. But yes, any place I've been that there are enough people to create a social space, that there are rules that go with that social space. There are people that make those rules, and I shouldn't say people, there's systems that make those rules. And it's just it's the nature of being more than one to have rules. It has nothing to do with this particular virtual reality, but in all the virtual realities. There were even some rules in the big chat room. Mostly those rules were just protocol, communication rules.
Okay, thank you. One short question, maybe. Do you still ride today? Do you have a motorcycle?
Do I still ride today? No, I don't have a motorcycle. I rode a motorcycle for many years. I enjoyed the motorcycle. I loved it. I loved going fast. I loved going around corners as fast as I could possibly go, etc. I was young. But when I got rid of my motorcycle, the motorcycle went about the same time that Pamela came into my life.
That's typical.
Huh?
That's typical when the wife came.
Exactly. So when that happened, then the motorcycle left. Pamela was not too comfortable with me on the bike or with us on the bike. And if she didn't like it, then I wasn't making her happy. So I got rid of it. But, even today, if I walk down the street and I see a big bike, I'll stop and look at it and appreciate it because it was a part of my life, but it's not a part of my life anymore. I'm not the same as I was then. Then, I had a four-cylinder motorcycle, four-cylinder engine, and my motorcycle could go 125, 130 mile an hour without breaking a sweat. And I enjoyed all of that. And I enjoyed going around corners until my foot pegs dragged and then pulling the foot pegs up to see if they'd still drag, because that was just exciting and fun. And, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you are invulnerable, live forever. And those kinds of things are fun. By the time you get into your 50s, you're more rational. And those things aren't so much fun anymore as they are risky because you don't heal nearly as quickly as you used to. So things change. I don't miss it in that sense, like I really want it and deny myself. I've changed to the point that I've accepted that that's just not in my life anymore. But yeah, Pamela was the one that chased my motorcycle away.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for these insights, because I read in your first book that you were a motorcycle rider, and I also have a motorcycle, and I love
Oh.
it very much. And then I had the question: are you still riding, or have your wife said no, stop it?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Diego has the last question for today.
Yeah, my last question is just to do with instinct and intuition. And if there's a correlation between what some people might call instinct, some might call intuition, and like, the animal instincts. In some ways, sounds something completely different, but in some ways, it sounds very similar. So
They are similar, but they are different things. Your instincts are things that are basically hardwired in you. It comes with your biology. Your intuition is mainly comes with your consciousness, not your biology. So they're very different in their origins, but they feel the same because in both cases, you just have urges to act or be or things without without any intellect to guide them. So they seem similar in that sense, but most all of our instincts are entwined with one of two things, and even those two things are really entwined with each other, and that is survival and procreation. Because in this virtual reality, those were the criteria for evolution. Things that evolved, if they could survive and procreate, then they would continue to exist. If they couldn't do those two things successfully, they would stop existing. So the only things that made it are things that were good at procreating and surviving. So that was how we, as avatars, as physical beings in this virtual reality, as avatars, we grew up having to meet those criteria, and we developed instincts to help us meet that criteria. So when we talk about your instincts, we're talking about those things that have to do with sexuality and with survivability, procreation and survival. That's where your instincts you've wrapped around. Other things we might learn, like from our culture. We have certain proclivities and things we like or dislike based on our culture, but I wouldn't call those instincts. Those are mostly collective consciousness. See, that's another thing. That's a third player in this game of why we do the things we do. There's the things that our culture teaches us, like folk dances. Okay, here's the folk dance that everybody does on holidays. And if you live in such and such a country or whatever, you learn to do that because you've been doing it since you were 3 years old. That's obviously not instinct. That's just cultural. But then there's those other cultural things that you get that nobody ever tells you. Nobody ever mentions to you, but you just get them anyway. And that's basically from your collective consciousness of being in that culture, being in that group. One of the things we get is kind of a bias toward being materialistic in Western culture. The stuff is the real stuff. Your imagination is something you make up. That's fake. It's not real. So we have that as just a bias. We believe that, if you don't move, you can't go anywhere. That's just because nobody has to teach you that. It's just evident from your existence that if you don't move, you can't get anywhere. Therefore, when we're not in our body, when we're consciousness, we think we have to fly to get someplace because we have that belief that you can't get anywhere if you don't move, when flying is really not necessary at all. When you're in conscious space, you teleport everywhere. You just go wherever your intent takes you. So there's lots of things that we pick up from our collective consciousness, attitudes. A lot of our attitudes towards things we get from our collective consciousness. We pick up from other people. We get from our culture. But that's not the same as instincts. Those instincts are, your flight or fight, your surge of adrenaline. You don't have to think about that. It just happens. It's part of your instincts, your sexual attitudes, desires, inclinations, all that's part of your instincts. It's just hardwired into you. Now, there's variations in instincts. Everybody's instinct is not the same. Instincts run from, strong to weak. That's true of animals as well. Sometimes you'll have like I did, you'll have a cat, a female cat that has a litter, and the cat doesn't have a clue what to do with them. She's just a failure as a mother. She doesn't feed them. She doesn't, sitting around them. She won't let them nurse. She just doesn't have strong instincts. Her instincts are very weak. And she'll just let the kitten starve to death if it was up to her. So sometimes instincts are very weak. Sometimes they're very strong. But that's the difference. But now intuition is a different thing. Intuition is just getting information that you know from another source. That's all inside your consciousness. It has nothing to do with your biology. Instincts go with your biology. They're part of that biology. Now, attitudes can also go with your biology. You can get an attitude, and it may come with your biology, or it may just be out of the collective consciousness. Sometimes it's hard to tell between those kinds of things. They could be either. But you can have an attitude toward things that just seems to be there because everybody in your family has that attitude. Nobody instructed you to have that attitude. You just pick it up by osmosis from the collective consciousness. That's just how other people are, so you become that way too. But that's not instincts. That puts us right at the hour, I believe.
Exactly. So thank you very much, Tom. And thank you everybody else for being here.
Tom Campbell here. I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this user-friendly, ad-free YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, we will always continue to do what we can. It's our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you.